Hi guys, I'm AB and welcome to WeTalk Inside Faith. And today is another lovely day. We have another lovely guest. So, would you please give us a short introduction about yourself, sir?
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Malcolm Amunza. I'm a practicing artist, but I'm also a master's student in arts and society. I've studied in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and I continued my education in the Netherlands, where I got a bachelor in fine arts, a pre-master's in media and culture, and soon I'm going to have a master's in arts and society.
I noticed you said that you do a lot of art. So, can you briefly tell us the art that you master in?
Of course. So when I was in school, I did a huge range of arts, whether that was drawing, painting, sculpture, but I also indulge in a lot of writing, poetry, and I also do music. I normally write songs and I sing. I sing more than I write, but I'd like to mix those together. And it's a very mixed media situation when it comes to the exhibitions because I intend to mix the different forms of art together. So I use storytelling as my artistic language. So I really deal with linguistics. And then from there, I use arts like singing, drawing, painting, or even writing to kind of then cement my ideas. Yeah.
That's lovely. So, you said you sing.
I also
Can you
sing
give
too.
us like a 15-second a cappella
Okay, I
of
can.
anything you like?
Anything I like?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
That'll be
the only thing that's going in my head right now is Aretha Franklin, so I'll sing one of them. Okay.
Give us a 15-second thing.
Of course. It's an evil wind that blows no good. It's a sad heart that won't love like I know it should. Oh, how long you short you must be. It's a shame if you don't share some of your love with me. There you go.
Nice.
Thank you.
That was really nice. That's amazing. I also remember in the graduation you just made something on dot. So you are also a type of artist that does that.
Yes.
How many can do that?
Well, I think with the kind, because I didn't do art in the traditional sense. So when I was studying in Dar, I always just drew at the back of my book, and I would sing with my friends heading home in the bus, or sometimes you just play with the bus seats and you come up with something. So most of my art starts from whether I was bored or we needed to pass the time or we just were too restless to just talk, so we sang and did things like that. So by the time I went into art school, I just refined whatever I was already doing in my childhood. So even in your graduation, when I just sang out of nowhere and made up a song, it was really more of what I used to do in my childhood. You hear a melody and then you figure out how you're gonna play yourself in there. And when you have the right people, they also know how to build up based on what you create. So it's also with the ear that you have.
Yeah, that was amazing. They played "Lose Yourself" by Eminem, but you made a whole song out of it. So that was really nice.
Thank you.
All right.
I didn't even know they were playing Eminem.
They're playing "Lose Yourself." That was the song. Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah. So before everyone knew you for your art and what you do, who was Malcolm? Who were you trying to become?
Who was I trying to become? Honestly, I think everyone knew I did art. My grandma was very angry with me because she had her car, she had her Land Rover, Land Cruiser.
Yeah.
And I took a rock and I started drawing around the car. And she was not happy with me. And I would draw on the walls. I drew on money. My mom was not happy with that either.
You were drawing on money.
I was a kid. You take whatever you have and then you just do whatever. So my mom then, during summer school, she would take me into those places where you can just paint the entire summer away. So I did that in Alliance Francaise, for example, as a way to kind of reduce the restlessness. But outside that, I thought I was going to be an English teacher.
Wow.
My plan was to kind of copy my grandmother's life. So I was then going to go to Judaism and then learn English language and literature, do courses on linguistics, and then I was going to then eventually be an English professor or a language professor or a professor of language and research. Because I do also like to read and write. So I thought, well, that it worked for my grandmother, and I like the life that she's living, so I'm gonna probably take that. So that was the original plan. So when my mom moved me to the Netherlands, then my plan shifted because then I got to see beyond what I saw at home. Because I didn't think you could make it with just art, especially here. It's always looked
Yeah,
down
it's
upon.
very, very difficult here.
Exactly. There's that idea that, well, yeah, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna draw for the rest of your life and then just draw Tinga drawings every day. So I thought, yeah, I'll be a teacher. And when I went abroad, then I got to see actually art does a lot more with society, culture. It shapes, it molds, but it can also manipulate the idea of the culture that we're in. So I became more interested in that lens. Yeah.
Nah, so I heard that you said the BB was your role model growing up?
Of course, she still is. I mean, my grandmother, she's always been the type that she's been fun,
Yeah.
but she wasn't a disciplinarian. She was very laid back, but she was very much a professor in that sense. I remember after school, I'd go to her office to pick her up. Well, she would drive us home, but she would sometimes be in classes, so she would tell me to join the classes. So I'll be maybe 10 years old and I'm sitting in her lectures just watching her do things. So through practice, I got to really appreciate her craft. And she said, well, a professor can be anything, a professor of arts, a professor of literature, a professor of math. So I thought, okay, there's a place here. And that openness that she had to take me under her wing was definitely very monumental for me. Yeah.
You make a good arts professor, I'd say.
You think so?
Yeah, you make a good one. Because
Thank
you
you.
go into details that anyone who has no knowledge about the art,
Yeah.
gets to
I mean,
get a grasp of it. So
I mean, I do appreciate that I had the opportunity to study abroad and to actually see art in a different light. Before the drawing and the painting, there's a lot of research and thought process that comes with that. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. There's a lot of reading that comes with it. There's a lot of writing that you tend to, depending on also the artist. Some people, they already see the picture and they draw. For me, I find that my pictures come from whatever I write or think about, because then I can actually see what my mind is trying to communicate. And from there, I use different forms of euphemisms to then create the drawing or painting or picture or whatever it is I'm trying to communicate in that sense. So it's kind of like a mixture of having to learn how to not per se communicate in itself, but also how to present that form of communication. So yeah, if I was to be a professor, I think I would also teach it in that way, that you shouldn't see art as a subject, but as a form of communication. Yeah.
that was nice. I mean, so you like to express what you're feeling.
Not always what I'm feeling, because I feel as though if it's always what I'm feeling, then it will be very limited. I think what I also like to express is recognizing the world that I live in itself, but also how I play a part in that.
Okay.
Where is my addition in it? Also looking at the privileges and the limitations that I also carry, then my art also shows that. So for example, because I grew up with a lot of women in my family, a lot of my art is, I guess, seen as somewhat feminist in a sense, but that's simply because it's something that I saw. It wasn't something I had to study. My mom is a single parent. My grandmother, my babu, wasn't around, so my grandma was also, in that sense, somewhat of a single parent, as how I experienced her. And so that's what I saw. So a lot of art that I do converse upon what that means, what that entails, and the kind of empowerment that that comes with, but also the struggles that we don't see. Because, of course, in public, it's like, okay, you're powerful, you've done this, you've done that, you have these accolades, umesoma, you've made it. But then it's only your children that actually see those nights that you're sitting there reading, trying to figure out, doing the bills and everything. You know, those are the things that people don't see, but I see. So then with my art, sometimes what I would do is also not per se expose that, but also shed light that, well, to get to the other side of the tunnel, there's also a tunnel that you have to cross.
Yeah.
We have to all face our demons. If we don't, then we're not going to make it to the other side.
Yeah, I have noticed that a lot of people, not artists per se, but a lot of people in general have trouble dealing with their demons.
Yeah.
And that's why they keep staying in the place where they are. They keep staying in the same lane, you know?
Well, I think it's also a matter of you never learn how to handle your demons. If you had abusive parents, then what happens is you learn to be silent. And because you're forced to suppress, then if you never learned another way to communicate, then you start to drink, you start to smoke, you start to do things that numb your brain. They give you that dopamine chemistry, but that's always short term. And that's the thing. Anything that's short term, you're never going to get to the other side because you're always going to be stuck chasing that high that makes you feel good for a little while. But to cross the tunnel means you have to re-experience that pain, endure it, and also accept that there will be a point where you're not going to get the answer or the closure you want, but maybe the closure is the action that they do towards you, whether they want to listen to you or not. So sometimes the idea of closure isn't per se what that person gives you, but it's what you're allowed to give yourself, to forgive them for you, which I'm still trying to learn. It's not that easy.
Yeah, it's not that
But
easy.
that's also the thing. You need those tools to know, to recognize what you need to do. And I think a lot of people don't get those tools. And by the time they get them, they're like in their 30s and 40s, and they see that maybe through their children. So I think it's also a generational thing, because you have the silent generation that they've learned that they have to keep things shut. Then you have the generation that wants to talk about it, and you have the generation that retaliates against the generation that wants to talk about it. So then once again, it's that miscommunication, because it's no longer that this person doesn't listen to you, but generationally, those people are conditioned to operate in that way. So by understanding that, and that's the whole point of research, by understanding where your parents come from, their standpoints, or your grandparents' standpoints, you start to see where you fit and how you can then create that life for you. And that's kind of one of the practices that I think hasn't really been taught, because sometimes we try to force people and try to get them to understand, but generationally they can't hear us because they've been raised a certain way that they can't just change. And even if they do, that also has different implications for themselves, because they would also need to be in that position of willing to unlearn what they did and learn what they learned in order to relearn how to be better. Not everyone wants it better. Some people would prefer to just hide. And some people who really want to know will go through a lot of heartbreak and heart pain, because it takes a lot to get there. But once you get there, you're much more peaceful. But it's a long process, because you never, in my opinion, I'm only 25. So I don't know, maybe at 50, I'll think differently. But for now,
Yeah.
I don't think you ever make it. I feel as though it's always a constant state of practice, that you have to always practice getting there. You have to not per se pretend that you're there, but just practice like as if you are there. Just saying, okay, I'm going to handle it this way. But forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. There's still that sense of accountability and boundaries where you say, actually, I don't want to be called this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And it doesn't mean I'm going to shout at you, but you will notice maybe I won't pick up your calls as much anymore, because I'm like, that's a boundary I'm not going to step with you. So yeah, it depends on also what you're willing to carry, what responsibilities you want to give yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means you have to accept what is to move on.
Yes, because that's just what life is. In my experience, in just
Yeah.
these 25 years, things are what they are.
Yeah.
You have a perspective of it, whereas for someone else has a different perspective
Yeah.
of it. And sometimes those paths cannot meet. But what you can do to ease your situation is to recognize where your standpoint is and how are you going to handle it in a manner that is effective and that will help you. And that's kind of also what therapy is. It's not about fixing the problem. It's about, okay, here are some tools on how you can handle yourself, because the only emotions you can really control are your own. So when you realize that you always have the responsibility of taking care of yourself, you'll also notice that the decisions you make will start to change.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
I have a very good and interesting question. I mean, you've met a lot of students that have been studying here, whether it's uni or it's A levels.
Yeah.
How has it changed for you when you went abroad and when you came back here? How you see stuff? Because I see there's a very big gap of how you see things and how people here see things. Because you're a bit more open now, I can say, from the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it always comes with who your mentors are, you know? So, for example, like I said, back to generational, when I was studying here, it was always about passing the year. So it's about your grades, it's about being academically sound. It's not a matter of how you're going to be academically sound. So whether you crammed or you understood what the teacher is saying, as long as you got that 100 or 90%, you are a genius. But you can only do that for so long. So when I went abroad, it was no longer about the grade, but more about how much you understand, how much you can develop, and you find that that actually then becomes, that then helps you create that grade that you want. So that's the thing. The difference is doing the work and how you do that in a manner that is effective with how much you can learn. There's some people that they can read and they don't understand anything, but if they get their computer to read it for them and they hear it, they understand it better.
Yeah.
There's some people, for me, for example, during lectures, if I sat there and listened, I'm not going to hear anything. But because I know that, I would force myself to sit at the very front and to write everything that I'm hearing, because then for some reason, because my hand is doing the work for me, I'm realizing that by the time I come and reread, I already know what I wrote, and I'm like, okay, this is easier for me. So it's always about not per se channeling the idea of what it should be, but channeling the idea of you. So in education there's a lot of what is your learn, how do you learn, how do you understand, how do you get there? So you have to do a lot of personal work and personal growth to understand, how do I understand mathematics or a language, or how do I process things? Versus here, it's a lot of, well, this is the idea, this is how you do it, this is how you get there, you have to figure it out. So people do the work, but they never really learn how to do the work in a manner that works for them. Some people need 5 minutes off work to kind of walk for a second so that whatever they were trying to figure out can marinate. And there's some people where they just see it and like, I got it, and da 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 da. But if you just have a system that only shows you one way, then that's only a percentage of people that can actually fixate themselves there. And the rest that don't, they don't really get the support. And support also comes from the capacity of who's providing that support. Because if you have 100 students, you cannot help 100 students. And even if you decided to help the special needs students, you can't. Because, for example, I went to the Karume school, and in that school, some students are deaf, some are blind. And it was Thai Tanzania. I was interning for Thai Tanzania. And one thing that we did was a lot of research before making the animation. So Thai Tanzania deals with people with disabilities and how to kind of give them voice. So it's almost like a microphone of giving them voice, of seeing their experiences and to kind of also rehumanize them. So not saying people who are disabled, but people who carry disabilities, because you can get hit by a car any day and be disabled, but you can also be born with it. But it's a matter, again, of how you're then able to handle it, but also a matter of how are you going to be supported. So in that school, what was interesting is you have the students who have abilities and you have people with different kinds of disabilities. And the teacher cannot help all of them because some of them are also not equipped to teach people with, for example, hearing disabilities. So then what we found interesting was their disabilities were different. So even if they're all deaf, some of them are deaf in different ways. Some can look and they can look at your mouth and they know exactly what you're saying. Some can hear a portion of things, and some of them they can't hear at all. So the deaf ones who could hear to a percentage or can mouth read, they were able to help the ones who couldn't hear or fathom a thing at all. So again, there's also that sense of support, community support of those around you, which I also think to some degree is also not really supported. Because, for example, what the school could have done, if they also have the capacity to do so, is to then have that extra class for those with disabilities to also learn how can they communicate with each other so that they can help each other, which also in turn somewhat helps the teacher help them. Because there's a lot of collaboration that needs to be done when handling a classroom. So that would be an example of, for example, abroad there versus here. So there's a lot of collaboration that you have with your tutors, because it's really on how are you going to develop to be able to be self-sufficient. And here there are those situations where people can be self-sufficient, for example, the people with disabilities in school, but they're not really fully supported in a way on how to also effectively communicate, because while they're trying to help them, they don't realize that they're trying to communicate, they're also murmuring, and then that also disrupts the students who don't have disabilities, you know? So then it becomes a chaos of sorts, and they're told to keep quiet, but they're trying to help a student who can't hear at all. And this is all happening within the classroom.
And it's just one teacher per class handling all of that.
Exactly. So that's also the thing. There needs to be systematic facilitation as well to handle that, as well as facilitation for the teacher to understand how to handle a group like that, which is not per se that easy or possible to do. But it also comes down to how to also help the students know how to facilitate each other in a manner that's effective, especially when you know that maybe your fellow classmate has a different kind of disability, whether that's a learning disability, a physical disability, or a verbal disability. Yeah. So it all comes back to facilitation, communication, and that sense of impact that someone's willing to take the time to support you in a way that works for you.
Yeah, that's sad. That means for that school, that's very exhausting for the teacher.
It's exhausting for everybody because everyone's trying to get to one goal, but no one really they're not fully equipped on how to get there. Because, of course, a teacher, I haven't really looked at the syllabuses here, but I can imagine that if you're going to learning school and you learn to be a teacher, how often are they also learning that their classrooms may have students with disabilities? For example, can those teachers speak sign language? As they're teaching while they're talking, can they also do sign languages at the same time? That could help the problem, but how many teachers know sign language? So that's one way of facilitation that could have been done, but not all teachers are taught that, you know?
Yeah.
But then also the teacher needs to also be able to have that compensation to have all those abilities. But that's not always possible because maybe there's state funding that's also a problem. The number of students is way too many and maybe not enough schools, or maybe there are enough schools, but the price variation also disrupts that as well. But also, we are a growing population, and to be frank, Apa and Dar es Salaam, we've already exceeded what they thought we would be right now, you know? So also the city cannot fully carry the full capacity of the people that do come here. And why is that? Everyone knows Dar es Salaam is one of those cities that has the businesses and everything. So if you want to make money, you probably have better luck here.
Yeah.
But had there been a situation where, let's say, that businesses could be done in every region in Tanzania, like as efficiently as in Dar, then people wouldn't feel the need to come all the way here, because then it will be well distributed. Because right now, Dar es Salaam still acts as a capital, but the capital is in Dodoma.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's facilitation once more.
Yeah. On that note, I want to know, like, what do you do when you get exhausted? Like when
I get exhausted.
Yeah, emotionally exhausted. What do you do? Do you take walks? Do you sleep? Because different people have different kinds of ways.
It changes, because when I was here, when I was exhausted, I drew or I sang. And then when that became my studies, I was like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Because part of my study is art now, and this was my escape, and now it's what I do. So It then changed. All of a sudden, now I went back to writing. So it shifted. So writing is one thing I do. Sleeping is another thing I do. Another thing I do is I try to prevent my crash outs. And what I do is I'll then gym in the morning. Then whatever frustration I have is already kind of gone. So by the time I get to class, I'm kind of already somewhat halfway through my day, but not exhausted in that sense. And also, what you eat really affects your mood. Because, for example, if you eat a lot of sweets, then your dopamine goes up, and then minutes later, you have a crash. Versus if you eat a lot of vegetables and fruits, then you will find that you will be active throughout the day because you are actually fueling your body for that. So it also comes down to the different kind of strategies, and that all comes back again to knowing how you function. So if you know that if I eat chips my eye before class, I'm gonna fall asleep, then maybe it's a good idea not to eat chips my eye.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so
Yeah.
that's also how you can help yourself from preventing yourself from being tired. Because by the time you get tired, it means you have exhausted your resources that your body has. Because your body already has fat, it has all these different forms of energy storage that it ensures that you keep going and going. It's like a car. It has gas, but it also has the reserve. And by the time the gari ikianza kufanya vituko, it means you've overused your reserves.
Yeah.
So when you reach exhaustion, it means that there's something in between your daily life that you're not giving it enough of. Maybe you haven't slept enough, maybe you haven't eaten well enough, or maybe you haven't moved enough to allow your body to actually take out the toxins and take in the good stuff. So I always noticed that whenever I did the right things, I wouldn't be so exhausted by the end of the day. And sleep also would come easy because then now I have disrupted my body enough with the gym, the school, eating good. So by the time I get home, all I want to do is sleep. And then it happens. So it becomes like a tower effect. Once you start doing good things, things slowly fall into place because you are following the order. But if you disrupt your body throughout the entire time, then you're always going to be exhausted because it keeps losing rhythm.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
You mentioned gym.
Yeah.
And I was always interested in such stuff. So I remember you were,
Yeah.
and then because
I
of
was
gym,
I was 116 kilograms, and then now
Yeah.
I'm 85. Yes.
take us through that. Was that all gym, or how did you get from that to that?
Well, I was first a skinny kid. That is the start. And then out of bullying, I just didn't want to deal with it. And I thought, well, when you're fat, then no one wants to deal with you because no one wants to bother you. So I intentionally started eating a lot. And when I realized I couldn't eat too much, I started putting sugar in my food to add the calories so that I could get fat faster. And then that became an addiction. Then I created a sweet tooth for myself. And I got fat the way how I wanted, but then I also started getting a bit sick, having back pain and stuff.
Yeah.
And then at around January 2022, I decided that I was going to officially change my life, not per se change my diet or gym, but I wanted to change my life because I first gymmed when I was 18 and I kind of lost the weight, but then I gained back and more because I was doing it because I was told I have to lose weight. And that's also a difference. There will be a different form of effort when you're told you have to lose weight versus when you start to realize I need to lose weight. And for me, it started with being tired all the time, back pain all the time, paying for physiotherapy all the time. Once it gets to your bank account, then you're like, actually, I need to make changes.
Yeah.
And also, I noticed that by eating healthier, it also became cheaper and easier because then, okay, ukichemsha mboga, within 10, 15 minutes, it's ready. Okay, you know, even your cooking style changes versus when you eat something that's processed. It takes way less time when you eat clean. So you start to notice that. And then also, I didn't want to lose weight quickly because I didn't want to do the mistake that I did at 18, where you lose a lot and then you gain.
It's not healthy, yeah?
It's not good because you start to yo-yo.
Yeah.
So I said I was going to take it slow because losing weight isn't a matter of eating less and just working out. It really is changing your life. It's really recognizing that if I eat if I drink soda every day, I am going to have diabetes and I will die. So when you start to realize that, you start to make the changes. You slowly change your life and your body will reflect it. So for me, when I noticed that my back stopped hurting, I was less tired. It made me more inspired to want to continue to exercise, no longer as a way of losing weight, but as a way of wanting to feel better and to physically feel alive. All of a sudden, I could do things I never thought I could do, like those exercises I do where I go upside down
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know I could do that.
Most
Up
of
until
the people at gym can do that.
well, it depends because the way how I was training was I wasn't training to be big or to be small. I just wanted to be able to be mobile because I loved swimming and I wanted to be able to continue to be flexible and mobile. So a lot of exercises I did a lot of weightlifting, yes, which is important, but I also did some calisthenics and I also did some cardio and I also did some just regular body weight training and such. And in between, I still swam, I still ran. So I wasn't per se focused in being buff and being muscular. My focus was really, I wanted to feel like how I was when I was climbing trees when I was 10 years old. That's what I wanted to feel. Yeah. Be able to be mobile, to fall and not to worry. And so my training reflected that. And that was also 3 years that I did this to get here. It wasn't like within a year. So I could have done it faster, but it's changing your life, and changing your life isn't going to be a 10-second thing.
Yeah, it's a habit.
You need to take your time because sometimes, yeah, I don't want to let go of the cookies. Sometimes I still want to eat them, but I can eat one instead of a whole box in one day and then crave it again tomorrow and buy another box. So those different forms of discipline as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you experienced this while gymming. There is those type of dudes, the big dudes.
Yes.
And then they realize that you can lift more than them. They make gym very uncomfortable. I stopped doing gym because of such people. There are those big dudes that they're really
I
big,
know.
but then you can lift more than them. So
I
it
know.
becomes a problem. It's like a competition.
Well, it does become competitive because no, it's like a church. Not everyone's healed. People go there. People go there to
for
heal.
sure.
Maybe someone was skinny and they were tired of being bullied for being tiny, so they got big. And the way how they got big happens in many ways. Some people take steroids, some people take PEDs, some people they will eat as much protein as they can. They'll take creatine that also fills up your water, and also you don't know how long they've been doing this. A lot of those people have been training for 10 years, 15 years. And then if you just come and you lift more than them and they've been doing it for 10 years, it definitely bothers them in that way.
Envy.
It's a sense of envy because it also stems from body dysmorphia. So it always starts from the self. How you feel about yourself is going to reflect how you're going to communicate with people around you. So if you feel shit, you're going to treat someone like shit because you learned it. Even Otwano Tukana, you're not going to learn an insult out of nowhere. You must have been around someone who said that. And then you're going to say it. And that's when you realize nothing's ever personal. Even if someone called me something bad right there, it's not really personal because someone called them that. And because it hurts them, they know, because it hurts me, I know this word is going to hurt him and I'm going to use it. But it all is coming from the filter of their own personal pain. So that also makes it easier to forgive because you realize it's never personal. Every insult someone gives you, someone gave it to them first.
Yeah, I mean, one of my boys, this is a funny story. One of my boys was like, I cannot react to what you call me because people are like, mboy, mboy. Yeah. But then he's like, I'm not a dog. I don't bark. I mean, do I go to trees and bark? No. Exactly. So you can just be like, mboy, yeah. Someone called you mboy, that's your problem. Yeah. You deal with it. Maybe because you bark. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And people have different connotations to dogs. A dog can be a protector, anaweza kambwa jalala, or they can be a best friend. So that also changes, but it's also how you want to see it. Haya, umeniita leo mbwa, lakini huyo mbwa ndo anakusaidia kukulinda pale nyumbani. Unless uling'atwa na mbwa, then that's you. Again, it's personal. So labda aling'atwa na mbwa nao anakuita we mbwa. Lakini your connotation of mbwa is very different from there. And that's when you realize a lot of people, they speak through their filters. So you never really purely hear what they're saying to you because it's always in the filter of themselves. They always have a mirror that's stuck there, and sometimes it's hard for them to see, so they just throw whatever they can, and as it hits you, it also falls back to them.
So they feel good for you getting
In
hurt.
the moment, you will feel good calling someone that, but then over time, it's going to reflect you badly because it'll be like, oh, jamaa anatukana sana. And then let's say later in life, maybe I have a business, and then huyo jamaa is looking for a job, and I'm be like, "Ah, huyo anatukana sana siku zote hizo, nimchukue saizi."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it will still affect you because it's an ecological thing. You know, it's a circular motion. It's not a matter of a line, it's circular. So whatever you're doing in this world will come back on you whether you feel it or not, but it will happen. Sometimes unaweza ukasema sifanikiwi, why? And sometimes you have to look and wonder, how do I actually talk to the people around me? Because you can be a good person, lakini maybe when you're with your friends unaanza kusema hey, yule akuwa ni mshenzi blah blah blah, you talk crap about people, and then your own friends then say we would like to hire him, but if he talks this about someone, if he's working, if I become his boss, what is he gonna say about me? So there's always that thing, you know. So even our machawa wako can also look at you one way, can laugh at your jokes, and then baadaye those jokes, they don't make them want to help you in a way that will affect them. And that's the thing.
I feel like being a hypocrite is part of the system nowadays.
It is.
Like everyone has to be a hypocrite to some extent.
Well, we talked about this before. There's a form of strategy that comes with it because it's always back to what you want out of life, you know? Like, let's say I have an issue with family members. I'm not just going to go around and shout at them out of nowhere because I hate them. I need a reason to do that. That also makes me hypocritical. Then, okay, now that I got the reason, I'm going to pounce. But then also, you know that if you went and shouted at them, then they're going to look at you like, I didn't even do anything. What's going on? So there's also that aspect. Even though people know he's a terrible person, unless he did something, there isn't that justification as to why you're doing that. And also the level of you're doing it, you have to be careful because if you call your uncle something bad, it will also reflect back to your mother.
Yeah.
So it's not just you.
Yeah.
So it becomes, so in a way it's hypocritical, but it's also strategic.
It's a loop that keeps on going.
Exactly. It's ecological. It's always going to be a circulation.
Let's shift to childhood. I saw that you mentioned.
Well, you were there.
Yeah, we were there together. We kind of did experience same but different.
Yeah.
It's just two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So you mentioned bullying.
Yes.
Well, currently, what I noticed is that most of the people, especially players, I can say players, they do that because of something they experienced when they were babies.
Yeah.
So there's like that because they were bullied or whatever.
It's a learned behavior. I mean, if you were bullied in grade 7, it wouldn't be a surprise that in Form 4 you become the bully because maybe Form 4 bullied grade 7. So now that you're in Form 4, you're going to behave the way all the last ones did. And then it becomes a vicious cycle just like that. I'm sure everyone in this world at some point in their life will meet a wedogo, you know? You are just bullied around,
Yeah.
I'm seeing here, whatever, you know? So it's learned behavior that you always have. But again, back to personal growth, it's how you handle it. There are some people that will take that in and do the work and be better people. And there's some people where the easiest way to numb the pain is to continue to perpetuate it because it feels less painful, but actually becomes more painful because you become the very thing you despise. And because you don't know how to get out, you just intensify and intensify. And then you can't go back because now you're already this far.
So what about the bully? What about the bullies? I'm interested in. I was bullied as well.
Yes.
I was bullied in my own sense, but I dealt with that, like how you dealt with it. So recently we met one of my old friends in a certain party, and then how they treated me was very. I didn't like it because we were in good terms back then, and now they're like, oh, who is Amani Brian, blah blah. That was very I felt really bad, honestly.
I know.
It was very uncomfortable. How do you deal with that? People from academic.
Academic.
Yeah.
Well, with the ones that I've met, it's nice that we're in good terms. But in terms of the people that I have met that have decided that they don't know you anymore, just accept it. Sawa. Kama hatujuani, we'll move on. But there will come a day we will see each other, and you might just as well need me. And even if you don't need me, sawa. If you've decided that we have decided to part ways in that chapter, then that's okay. That's one less person to worry about, you know. But that's again my mindset. I'm always thinking about how I can live better as I go on. So if someone decides to pretend they don't know who you are, for me, I'm like, okay, amenirahisishia kazi. I don't have to think about this one. I can move on, and that's what I do. Some people can feel hurt, but then you have to always ask yourself, where are you putting yourself in there? You know, why is there that sense of value that you feel as though, why does this person not remember me? Okay, maybe they were your friend, maybe they were your partner at the time or whatever. Why are they feeling this way? You never know. Other them personally, maybe they didn't like who they were, so they've shedded and became different people. And anyone in their past reminds them of who they used to be, which is what they're running away from. So sometimes when you see someone do that, maybe they're running away from their own demons. The manner sometimes, for me, what was even more confusing are the people that did bully me coming to me now saying, oh, hi, how are you? I've missed you. And I'm like, huh?
Missed you.
What?
Hypocrites.
I'm like, this person. What do you mean? But maybe they healed in their own time. I wasn't there, you know? Sometimes it's been 10 years or 7 years, you haven't seen someone who used to be a bully, and then now all
Jehovah's
of a
Witness?
sudden, wanakusalimia. I don't know, it could be Jehovah. It could be maybe they were bullied uko chuo. It could be maybe their parents died and now they're really rethinking life. You know, you never know what people were doing over there because those are their episodes. While you're living yours, people also living their episodes. So sometimes you just have to assess the situation and recognize, okay, where is my footing in this? Sometimes people do heal, and sometimes you do need closure. Maybe your boundary is, I want closure. So put them accountable if you want that closure. If they don't want to give it to you, then they're running away from their demons. And where you have no right to carry msalaba.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, kama if that's what they want to be, let them carry msalaba. That's your closure. That they have a cross and you will not carry it. Basi.
What I notice is about our old school, most of the people were traumatized there.
Yeah, man.
Was it generational or something? Most of the people that, even celebrities, people our age, whatever, they're all traumatized.
It was taught. It was, if I remember, yes, you did this wrong when I chapa. You wrote with the red hand, with the red, what is this? With the left hand unachapwa. Oh, you're told uende uka kneel down kwenye jua pale calling the rain.
Yeah.
At the time we were wearing shorts, so
Yeah.
unaungua. Unafika nyumbani labda uniform yako imekuwa chafu unachapwa. Okay. You did this wrong, umechapwa shuleni, they write it in your diary, you go home, your mom comes home, anakuchapa tena. Wait till your father comes home, anakuchapa. Umechapwa mara tatu. Are you gonna come out normal?
There's no way. Man.
Because that was the culture we grew up in. Ikiwa hivi utachapwa. So you reach a point where you just stop, you become numb. You're like, and then at some point your parents stop beating you because either you're just big enough or they notice it doesn't hurt him anymore, you know? But it does in a different way. It starts to show up in other ways. Maybe you become more aggressive.
Or distant.
Or you also become distant and you give up. And because they're like that, you start to see how they treat people also reflects that. And then it becomes something that you don't talk about anymore, only within your small friend groups, but you never want to have a bigger dialogue because maybe it's embarrassing or maybe because you're upset that you weren't able to do anything about it or you felt weak. But yeah, I can imagine if umechapwa shuleni, umechapwa nyumbani, you have no safe space, then you're never going, where are you gonna go? What are you going to do? You don't have the tools. You're just a kid, you came into this world. You start school, chekechea was fine, and then you start grade school and then it changes. You don't understand a small concept, unachapwa.
Honestly, man, secondary was a bit worse, I could say.
Yeah.
But I remember in primary, there was this, remember Pen Fighter? pen
course.
fighting.
Yes.
It was our yeah. There was
There's
this
the one with
one
the
day
ball that did this.
a certain teacher wrote in my diary that I played pen fight, and my mom was like, "You should never play pen fight." And on that specific day, I think it was the whole week, I didn't play
Yeah.
because mom told me not to. But then because people were playing and they were my friends, so that teacher wrote in my diary.
Ikakuandikia na wewe.
And then when my mom saw my diary, she started yelling at me and what. And so I was like, I was young. I was in grade 4. I think I was 9.
Yeah.
I don't remember how old I was, but I remember telling myself that there is no way in hell I'll ever like this teacher. Because it's not fair.
Yeah, like but that's also kind of how the world works. Again, it's the circular formation of who you're associated to. We classify everything. We classify male, female. We classify upper class, middle class, lower class. So even in school, everyone has their own ecosystem. Na kila mtu ana machara yake. And because the teacher cannot individually understand and know every student, they start to group you because it's easier for them to know, okay, there's this group, there's that group, and there's that group, and in that group there are these people and they carry that same personality. So because they never learned how to facilitate such a group of people into individuals, they start to categorize them. So if they did something, you're always going to be involved because you're part of that group. And that's again back to that problem of facilitation.
It's weird, man.
So then we end up blaming the teacher, and then the teacher anasemwa by the principal, and the principal atasemwa with the board of directors, and it never makes it anywhere because the problem is the system itself. No one's being facilitated. Everyone is getting blamed, and there are no changes because it never goes to the right people, and the right people are not even in the building.
That's insane. So what I noticed that most of the people, it's either because of how they were treated, they start off as introverts.
Yeah.
And then as they grow up, they realize that life is okay, so they're more open, like how we are right now. Because how we were as kids was totally different.
I mean, you as a kid, you carry a lot of hats, of course, because at school you were one guy, at home you're someone else.
Totally.
Because it's also about that sense of safe space. How much can I be myself here? And as kids, every kid does this thing where wanaangalia, like, if I break a plate, how will mom react versus how will grandma react? And then through that, it tells them, okay, I can be more myself with this person, and this person I'll be reserved to this area. Because it's learned. You do something and then you look, and you're like, okay, I can do this now, or maybe I can't do that. And that's always these unspoken negotiations that every person does. So with introverts to extroverts, if you notice, by the time they turn into extroverts, either they're not home anymore, either they make their own money, or they moved abroad, because finally, for once, they can be free to really create the life of themselves. So that extrovert is who they've always been, but they just had to suppress it for a little while.
Inside.
Yeah.
That was nice.
It's a negotiation.
I remember one of our teachers, Teacher Ernest, was really trying to make us, go out there.
Yeah.
And he's still there to this very day. My cousins really love him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, Teacher Ernest is really good. I mean, he was one of the first teachers that really made me want to do art. And that's also, again, he was only able to do that because within the whole group of classmates, only the select few were taking art. So because there were fewer art students, he was actually able to have the time to support everybody individually. So you felt heard because he didn't have that many students.
That was nice. Speaking of art, that Teacher Ernest taught us, you became a pro. I would like you to draw something.
Okay.
I'd like you to draw fate. In your own way, in Malcolm's point of view.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to sketch it.
To sketch something for fate?
Just something quick, something like how you see fate.
Okay.
Yeah. From anything to everything. You normally listen to music while drawing it.
It depends. Sometimes I don't have to do all that. Sometimes I can just stand there and just look and know, okay, this is what I'm doing now. It depends.
No filters.
No filters, none of that.
None of that. He's drawing it right here.
Right here.
Can you briefly tell me about that? You remind me. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw it was Cartoon Network, because we were talking about that last
Yes,
night.
we were talking a lot of Cartoon Network, and I think what they do is a lot of fun mixed media thing where they take different random 2D, 3D, sometimes even live action modes together, and then they create this sense of bubble words that move around. So what I was doing was I first thought about what does fate mean to me in terms of this conversation. So I start with the idea of fascination, wanting to kind of know of the people that you bring in there and the kind of roles that they're doing. So I see this as a portal to the minds of your guests and getting there. And in our conversation of today, the A would go for assertion.
Yeah.
So you have to always recognize that in your life, you always have to assert yourself in a certain standpoint to knowing where you are and where you want to go. And then from there, only there, you can really experience that sense of transformation where your assertion has to carry that T, and then only then can you then get that sense of excellence. So what I drew here is kind of the word fate, but it's almost like somewhat of a fallen angel carrying the T, asserting the T up there to get that sense of freedom, which almost looks like a hand of sorts. Yeah, so that's what I got.
Amazing. Moving on to the final few questions. What do you get misjudged for?
Misjudged for?
Don't tell me about them looking at you as a foreigner when you came back. That's rubbish.
Right, it is rubbish. Well, that is always one thing, but another thing I will say that I do notice a lot, especially around my peers, is people think people when they first see me, they're afraid to approach me because they think I'm mean. They think that I am too serious, which is very opposite. Because I don't talk. And most of the time it's because I'm kind of, in my head, I'm thinking, how do I assert myself here? What do I do? So my mind is always like strategizing. How do I communicate? What is the language here? Where do I start? Who do I talk to first? And while I'm thinking, people just see my thinking process, and I just sit there looking like.
Yeah.
So then, of course, people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, okay, maybe not talk to that one." One day I was walking near a skyscraper building and it was sunny, so I was kind of walking around like this.
Yeah.
And I saw myself and I was like, yeah, I wouldn't approach myself either. So that idea of perception, that even your face card will determine how people are going to see you in the world, even though it's not who you are. But yeah, maybe that's the easiest thing I can think of. People think I'm snobbish or mean, or that I wouldn't want to vibe with y'all, which is further from the truth. I'm just confused.
So some people think you're white.
White?
Yes. You look like a foreigner.
Yeah, there's that foreigner nonsense. And I'm like, I'm dark. I don't know. I don't have an excuse anymore. I'm like, I don't think you can get any more African than this. Even when I had my hair, it was an afro. So I don't know what it is, but you know what? Yeah, it's on them now.
So what would you
It's
like?
above me.
What would you like to tell little Malcolm?
You know, Malcolm.
Yeah.
You wouldn't listen to me.
Okay.
If I had the chance to go back in time and meet myself, I wouldn't say anything. I just sit there and look. One, because I always feel like had I been told, I probably wouldn't have done it. And looking at my weight, that's a good example where people telling me to lose weight, I ate more. So I have learned that for someone
Yeah.
like me, just don't say anything, just watch them, somewhat plant it in as like, oh my God, I looked at this. Isn't this interesting? Then I'm going to look like, oh, what is that? And then I'll dive into it myself when the time is right in that sense. But if you tell me what to do, I'm not going to do that. So
Till
yeah.
this very day? Oh, that was just when you were.
It depends. Like if an elder came to me and told me, if you want an easier life, maybe do this, I will take that into consideration. Like Babu, that day we were cooking, I was cutting the vegetables, and then it was like, Bwana Malcolm, wewe, fine, you may be efficient, but you're working too hard for no reason. Because why would you cut all this and now you have this mess? So while you're cooking, you have to go clean this mess. Ukikata vizuri, you don't have to clean because you've already done that beforehand. You've prevented it.
Yeah.
So I started looking at that and thinking, okay, this is just vegetables. For the rest of the other things I do in my life, how does that show up? And I noticed, yeah, there's a lot of messes that I have created because I never did it cleanly. I did it cutthroat and right there because I wanted to be efficient. But because I did that, there was a lot of loose strings that were just left over for themselves to deal with. And then by the time I come back, I'm like, well, what is this? So again, from ho-ho to now realizing how I walk with my life, and I made those, well, I am still making those changes.
And what would you like to leave the people that are watching from anything to everything right now?
I guess what I will leave with them is what I drew. Continue to have that fascination on the world, learn more of whatever it is you want to be interested in. If they are your biases, allow them to be your biases, but recognize that they are biases and also look beyond that. Assert yourself into what you believe in, but also research what that is. So you need that fascination to know where you're asserting yourself. You need to know where you're standing. You're not
Yeah.
just gonna throw the mbegu up and wonder why mti wa maembe umeota hapo. So assert yourself intentionally so that you can allow yourself to transform. And only then, after you transform doesn't mean letting go who you used to be. Sometimes it's recognizing who you were to know where you're going. You need history. That's how, for example, countries like China made it. They have a 5,000-year history. They have history to know how to get there because they know how they got here. So have that in order to experience a sense of excellence in your life. Yeah.
So lastly, we have a sort of tradition in Fate that would like to ask the guest, what is the one question that you've always wanted to be asked that nobody ever asked? Ever.
To ask me that.
Yeah, you always wanted people to ask you that question, but they've never asked you.
Well, I've already been asked every question. I don't think I have a question that I wish someone would ask me. People are always asking me questions, and sometimes I'm like, I don't have the answer to that. I do have a question that I wish had an answer, but it doesn't have an answer.
What question is that?
My question is always like, what happens when you die?
Okay,
That's
we'll
my
leave it
question.
up to you. We'll leave it up to you. So this has been AB and Malcolm, who's my cousin. We didn't mention that because,
Yeah, nepotism.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it to all of your friends. Bye.
Have a faithful day.
That was nice.